I'll start with a quick review for this book, Breathe, The New Signs of a Lost Art. Very interesting. I'll give this book 4 out of 5. It almost got a 5, unless, if not for those parts that got a little off track, longer stories, and generally about those books that find they have a trick or whatever, they are onto something, but they try to apply it to anything, to cancer, to sleep problems, to everything. And generally, those this is I always see it as it's more complicated than that. But overall, it's really I really enjoyed that book. Definitely goes into my favorites. I think it's an important book. I was always into breathing and yoga techniques, and this is a good book. Very well written, I think, and good information. Good information that I wasn't exposed to much in other books. So in that way, it gives you a good overview of the subject, and it's also an important part, in my opinion, about breathing. It is important. Many people have issues with that, and we don't breathe enough, and we'll go through more into that. But I definitely recommend the book. Now let's see the notes. How we breathe really matter. Breathing is not binary. So there is a way we can breathe more, less, how much. So how we breathe really matters. We use oxygen as fuel. We literally use it for energy functions. Mouth breathing is ruining our health for in many aspects, but it's not good for us. Anaerobic energy uses glucose but is polluting. Aerobic energy is less polluting but less available. So some differences between anaerobic and aerobic energy. One of them is uses glucose, but it's more polluting. The other one is the aerobic energy is less, but it's not as available. Glucose is obviously very available, but aerobic energy is not. I think it's mostly derived from fats. It takes more time, less polluting, but also not very available. Subtracting our age from 180 is the maximum recommended pulse. That's how we know about what's the maximum pulse we should do. So 180, so let's say we're around 30, therefore the maximum should be around 150. Mouth breathing is drying us up. Especially overnight, when we breathe through our mouths, we get dried up easily. And that's one of the problems if we sleep and we breathe through our mouth, we will wake up with feeling dryness. Our body alternates between right and left nostrils. Probably used for different functions. Right nostril is associated with the right atmosphere and the left with the left. This is useful in different situations. Right nostril would be open for right brain uses and so on. So apparently the body uses different nostrils for different functions. So the right nostril would be associated with the right hemisphere and would be used in those situations when we need or we use the right hemisphere more often. I don't know how well this is based because many times both are clogged or both are open, but apparently the body would use that strategically. Mucus is used to defend against invaders, as it collects all of it and passes it down to the stomach, which burns it by acid. So that's why mucus, that's the function, that's what mucus is used for. It collects all the invaders, bacteria, viruses, and such, and pass it on to the stomach, which then everything gets burned by acid. So it's a good thing to have, and then that's one of the reasons we need to breathe through our noses. Mouth breathing is one cause for cavities. That's one of the causes, apparently, for cavities. We breathe more through our mouth. I think it's also not associated, but it's also related to dryness. There is less saliva, and I'm not sure he specifically spoke about it in the book, but I think it's related. Large lungs are associated with healthy lifestyle. The larger the lungs, the better, and apparently we can make them bigger or smaller with time or exercise and things like that. Full exhalation is very important. We need to get rid of all of the hair, and oftentimes we would leave like 30 or 40, whatever, how many percentages we live in, so we kind of breathe on the rest. But full exhalation is very important. Most weight loss comes in a form of CO2 exhalation through the lungs, which is a very interesting idea fact that most of the weight we lose, or most of the food we burn through CO2 and not through whatever other means. Yeah, most of it is in a CO2 form. Very interesting. That's where we lose energy, or that's how we burn energy in a way, almost like a chimney. The body doesn't need more oxygen, it needs more CO2. We don't have enough CO2. We don't need more oxygen. Breathing faster doesn't increase oxygen level. Breathing slower allows more absorption. So that's what you need to do. Instead of breathing more, you need to breathe slower, and then there is more absorption done, and not just breathing more. 5.5 in and out is the recommended rate of breathing per minute. The average is 18 breathing. So 5.5 in and out total, which is about 5.5 seconds for in, 4.5 seconds for out, inhale and exhale. And that's the recommended. So total will give us about 5.5 full breaths per minute. Now the average is 18, so almost 4 times, or it's about 3 times more than the recommended amount. Side note, the book claims to find solution for most things. So that's what I complained about in the review part, is that this is one of those one-size-fits-all solution that breathing is going to solve all of our problems. He acknowledged that this is not the case, but it still feels like it. And there's nothing necessarily wrong about it, but it just feels, not wrong, but it just doesn't feel right. Breathing less seems to lead to better performance. So actually breathing less is associated with better performance, not breathing more. So athletes and other professional sports players and such do work on breathing less. Side note, there is too many stories and they are a bit too long. I'm not a big fan of stories, especially longer ones, and some of them are, especially if they're not really good, what's the point? Just tell me what you want to get out of the story, and there is no point. You can definitely shorten the book for that. And I feel like it's a waste of time and I'm losing attention. So, a reduced need for chewing has shrunk our mouth size. We don't chew enough, basically, because our modern diet, and therefore our mouths are being shrunk. And breathing is easier. Going back to this again, which is one of the reasons why it's harder for us to breathe, because there is smaller mouth, also allows less breathing capabilities. Breathing is easier when the head turns back and not hunched forward. That's one of the ways to make it easier for us to breathe, is to put our heads back. That allows more free inhalation, even if it's done through the nose. Because it's kind of, if you were hunching forward, that's kind of blocking some of it. The sympathetic state is associated with fast breathing, indigestion, and hard time to reach climax. So the sympathetics, there is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system. The sympathetic is the one that is associated also with our run or flight response. It also have freeze, by the way, but it's also associated with fast breathing and indigestion. So we're not gonna digest very well because it's associated with, okay, we have to do something, we have to run. There is no time for digest, and it's also a hard time for to reach climax because the body diverts attention and energy to other parts of the body. Breathing slowly is associated with the parasympathetic system, which is the relaxed stage. So that's breathing slowly is the opposite of the sympathetic, so the parasympathetic system, and that's when we relax, we breathe slower. Changing breathing rate allows us to indirectly control our nervous system, so that's how we can hack it in a way, going back to the parasympathetic and the sympathetic systems. So controllably changing our breathing is indirectly a way to control our nervous system. Adapting for fluctuations in CO2 levels can reduce anxiety, as the body has a physical mechanism to avoid high CO2 levels. So we need to learn how to be okay with more or less CO2 levels, because that can reduce anxiety when the body doesn't feel that it's right, because the body has the mechanism to avoid high CO2 levels, so it alerts us about it. But if we learn how to deal with it, we are less likely to fall into anxiety situations and panic attacks. Some anxiety is caused by low CO2 levels. It was a little confusing in the book. Is it good with having more or less CO2? It's a little confusing. What's causing anxiety, more or less? Could be both, but this part wasn't very, very clear in the book. Long continuous inhalation and inhales and exhales are healthy. Total 30 seconds is a great place to be. So just doing a long inhale and exhale, so it's going to be about 15 in, 15 out, which is kind of long, but that is a great place to be. I think it's one of them says if you can do that, you're gonna live or whatever. You're gonna have any issues. Or one of those, a guru or something. I forgot who said that. According to the author, prana is oxygen. Prana is associated from the Eastern religions or Eastern traditions, whatever cultures, is oxygen. He also associates oxygen with other holy cultures that they have something related to oxygen or breathing and hair, things like that. Yoga used to be all about breathing. That's why it not started, but when they first started this practices, it was mostly about breathing, and today's not at all almost. It's more about exercise. Full exhalation is very important. I already said that, but it's probably very important, like exhale all the way. The goal is to hold the breath for 45 seconds to 60. So that's also holding our breath is also very important every once in a while. The good place to be is 45 to 60 seconds. And the final note, good relaxation technique is inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. I think they use it in the army or in one of those institutions for relaxation and for panic attacks or whatever. It's good. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, and exhale for 4. So 4. So that's it for the notes. Again, very interesting book. Learned some things. And 4 out of 5 I would recommend. Thank you.